Let's turn our attention to nematodes that are actually called roundworms. The first is the human roundworm, Ascariasis lumbricoides, which causes the disease Ascariasis. Most cases have few symptoms, but those with high worm burdens may have abdominal pain and intestinal blockage. There may also be instances of children coughing up worms when they pass through lung tissue. Transmission is through food or soil contaminated with human sewage, and is especially prevalent in parts of the world where crop fertilization with human excrement is still permitted and sewage disposal is inadequate. The problem is exacerbated with the consumption of raw vegetables and other fresh produce. Adult worms live in the small intestines, and female worms can lay a few 100,000 eggs a day, which are passed into the environment through feces. Fertilized eggs develop in soil and become infective after roughly 2.5 weeks, although this time span is dependent on environmental conditions. Once ingested, eggs hatch in the small intestines. The larvae then penetrate the intestinal mucosa and enter the bloodstream and travel to the lungs, where they remain for up to 2 weeks before going through the alveolar walls and migrating up to the throat, where they are swallowed back into the intestinal tract. They mature into adults in the small intestines, and female worms can produce eggs 2 months after infection. Adult worms can live for as long as 2 years. One of the major problems with Ascariasis is the hardiness of their eggs, which are resistant to harsh environmental conditions and chemicals including bleach. Eggs can survive in soil for 3 years and another year longer when refrigerated. In weak formalin solution, they can survive for 5 years. Depending on the type of treatment, some wastewater treatment plants may not be able to remove or inactivate Ascariasis eggs effectively. Adult Ascariasis worms are 15 to 35 centimeters long, which is about a foot long for the largest ones. Females are usually longer than males. They are creamy to whitish pink, cylindrical, and tapered at both ends. Human Ascariasis worms are the largest human parasitic nematodes. Since they are smaller than 1/10 of a millimeter, Ascariasis eggs are too small to be seen without magnification. They can be rounded or elongated, depending on whether they have been fertilized. Fertilized eggs are rounded, and a developing embryo can sometimes be seen inside, whereas unfertilized eggs are elongated. Some eggs may have a wavy layer on the surface, while others have a smooth surface. This variation in morphology makes it difficult to identify these eggs. It is important to be familiar with the various egg morphologies, as the disease is confirmed in the lab by detecting worm eggs in fecal specimens. Ascariasis can be treated with anti-helminthics, which are the same for many different types of roundworm infections, so we won't need to learn them separately. To prevent transmission, human sewage should be disposed of in a sanitary manner and should not be discharged into the environment when untreated. Mass treatment programs, especially for children, should be present in infected communities. Raw vegetables and produce should be washed thoroughly or cooked properly before consumption. Animal roundworms are also capable of causing human disease. Toxocara are dog or, less commonly, cat roundworms that can infect humans if their eggs are accidentally ingested after exposure to contaminated soil. Humans are accidental hosts, as the worm cannot complete its life cycle within the human body. Instead, after the larvae hatch in the intestinal tract, they migrate to the liver and other tissues, resulting in a condition called visceral larva migrans, which is more common in children. Some of them may end up in the eye, resulting in ocular larva migrans, a condition that is more common in adults. In some parts of North America, where pets have not been dewormed adequately, heavy contamination of city parks and gardens may be present. It is therefore important to avoid exposure to dog or cat feces, cover sandboxes that children play in, wear gloves when gardening, and practice good hand hygiene. One of the most worrisome animal roundworms in Toronto is the raccoon roundworm. Unlike Toxocara larvae, they continue growing in humans and cause severe tissue damage, when visceral and ocular larva migrans is present. Some of the larvae may even migrate to the brain and can cause severe neurological problems, especially in young children. In fact, your problem-based case this week is on a child in Toronto who was infected with raccoon roundworm and became seriously ill. I won't give away any spoilers and will let you read the paper. Hookworms are another type of roundworms. Unlike the others, they enter the human body through the skin and cause severe itching at the invasion site called ground itch. Like Ascariasis worms, they also migrate to the lungs and cause mild coughs. They're then swallowed and mature in the small intestines, where they attach firmly to the intestinal wall and suck blood. The blood loss can result in iron deficiency anemia that contributes to tens of thousands of deaths every year around the world. Hookworms are common human intestinal roundworms that are found worldwide and are endemic in areas with poor sanitation. There are two major types, the Old World type that was originally more prevalent in Africa and Asia, and the New World type, which is found mainly in the Americas. Today, both the Old World and New World types of hookworms are present in North America. Female adults in the small intestines lay eggs that are shed in fecal matter by infected humans. In the environment, eggs embryonate and larvae then emerge. After around a week, they develop into filariform larvae which are able to penetrate human skin and enter the bloodstream to be carried to various parts of the body, including the heart, lungs, and trachea, before being swallowed to end up in the small intestines. Adult worms are small, about 1 centimeter in length. The eggs need to be viewed using microscopy as they are less than 1/10 of a millimeter in size. They're oval-shaped and have thin walls. There may be an embryonic worm within or a mass of cells. The Old World hookworm has 4 hook-like teeth, whereas the New World hookworm has cutting plates instead, so they can be differentiated at this stage. However, both of them have identical-looking eggs, so they cannot be differentiated at the egg stage. Like all the other worms, hookworms are diagnosed by detecting and identifying their eggs in fecal specimens. Multiple stool exams are often required in order to detect the eggs, and very tiny amounts of blood may sometimes be present in fecal specimens. The blood that is present cannot be seen, and special tests need to be carried out to detect it. Eosinophilia, or higher levels of eosinophils than normal, are also an indicator of infection. Eosinophils are granulocyte white blood cells, which have a role in fighting off large parasitic worms. Hookworms can be treated with anti-helminthics and prevented by wearing appropriate footwear. Dogs and cats have their own types of hookworms. When these hookworms encounter humans, they cause a condition called cutaneous larva migrans, when the worms enter the human body from the environment. Since these hookworms are from animals, humans are not the definitive host, and this is considered to be a zoonotic infection. After penetrating human skin, dog and cat hookworm larvae start to wander aimlessly and are not able to mature into fully grown adults, so the infection is not very serious. In cutaneous larva migrans, larvae move a short distance of several millimeters each day, causing intense itching in that part of the skin area. The condition can be diagnosed by inspecting the skin lesions that appear as tunnels and exposure histories to dog or cat feces. Treatment is usually not required, as the larvae survive for only a month and a half. Once the larvae die, the pain and itching will subside and resolve on its own. Like toxocariasis, dog and cat hookworm infections can be prevented by avoiding exposure to dog and cat feces, wearing gloves when gardening, covering sandboxes, and deworming pets. Strongyloidiasis is another human roundworm. It is unique because it has parasitic and free-living adult forms. Most cases are asymptomatic, although there may be abdominal pain and diarrhea. Eosinophilia may be present during acute and chronic stages, and coughing is a symptom when the larvae are present in the lungs. Cases may also suffer from intensely itchy rashes when larvae migrate from the perianal area to the buttocks and waist. This condition is called lava currents, as lava can move very quickly, several centimeters per hour. The disease has a lower prevalence than hookworm infections, but like hookworm infections, it is also present in North America, particularly in rural and remote areas with poor sanitation. There have been reports of organ transplant recipients acquiring the infection from asymptomatic donors. As well, infections in immunocompromised individuals can become disseminated, resulting in accelerated autoinfections, during which large numbers of migrating larvae invade tissue and organs, making the situation life-threatening. The life cycle of strongyloidiasis is rather complex. There are two parts, one in the environment and another in the human host. Let's look at the left side of the figure, which is the environmental cycle. Free living adults in the environment reproduce, and the eggs hatch. The larvae mature into filariform larvae that are able to penetrate intact skin. Like hookworms, they migrate through the bloodstream to the heart, lungs, and trachea before being swallowed and ending up in the intestinal tract. On the right-hand side, we can see that the larvae develop into adults in the human intestinal tract. They're all females. Mature worms lay eggs that do not require fertilization. They become embryos and hatch in the intestinal tract. Autoinfection occurs when some of these larvae mature into filariform larvae, then penetrate the intestinal mucosa or perianal skin to migrate to other parts of the body, causing lava currents. Infected humans do not shed eggs and feces. Instead of shedding eggs, immature or rhabdidiform larvae are excreted in the stools from infected humans. These larvae become either filariform larvae that can directly infect another human, or free-living adult worms in the environment. Unlike the female worms in the human host, free-living worms can be either male or female, and eggs produced by female worms need to be fertilized before developing into embryos, and then filariform larvae to indirectly infect another human. Rhabdidiform larvae are small, less than half a millimeter long, and need to be magnified using microscopy to be seen. Diagnosis is based on detection and identification of the rhabdidiform larvae in fecal specimens. Inspection of several stool specimens may be necessary, as the worm burden is usually low, with few larvae present in healthy immunocompetent individuals. Therefore, immunoassays such as ELISAs are used as alternative tests. Treatment with anti-helminthics is available. Wearing appropriate footwear outdoors is necessary to prevent transmission in areas where the disease is prevalent and where sanitation is poor.